sheet? Anyone? Any volunteers? I'm going to pick somebody if you don't volunteer.
So explain how the power of poetry has affected the world and you.
I don't believe it has affected the world.
Why? Okay, why do you feel?
Because I know a lot of people that don't like poetry. Like me, Clint.
Me?
Okay, so you don't think that poetry has affected the world in any way?
I really don't.
Has it affected me?
Yes.
Do you write poetry?
No, but people don't realize that like a rap song that they like, that's considered poetry. Rap is poetry. It's just a different form of poetry. So in a lot of ways, you don't think about rap affecting you and affecting the world when it really does, because I know a lot of you listen to rap. So.
You make a good point.
I listen to gospel.
So maybe that's like something that you can rethink and rewrite it down. If you want, anybody? Who else wants to share? Anyone?
Sam, what'd you write down?
I put that it has changed to do with music because it wasn't somebody's head and that the music has
Digital's away,
How has
guys.
it affected you personally? Tyler, what'd you write down?
Why do you look at me?
Good. Justice, what'd you put?
It makes people more sensitive, I guess.
It's good. They're all good answers. I'll pick them up. You wanna?
still working on it. I had it in my head, but I'm too lazy to get a pencil.
How's it got something?
What was it today? Yeah, it was one day.
She got a what? She got a back
I hate it when they're right.
If I get my phone, your arm's gonna get tired.
It is. I'm moving it around. The first two. The first two. There you go.
Who's your person?
County Cullen. This is what our early life. He was abandoned by his mother and taken care of by a lady named Mrs. Porter, who was most likely his grandmother. It was never proven that she was for sure, but a lot of people think that it probably was, and he thought that it was never proven. That's why we had to say most likely. Countee was brought to Harlem at the age of 9. Later, he was adopted by Reverend and Mrs. Frederick Cullen, who lived in Harlem, New York City.
Okay, here's one spot I'm going to stop you. Remember, you're filling in facts that you feel are important about this author. So yes, as just like Harrison, I think, just mentioned, don't go too fast through your PowerPoint, but you as students, remember that you're looking for major significance for the author and the author's work. So when his birth date was, who cares? You know, was he old or young during the Renaissance? What area of the nation did he grow up in? Major accomplishments, things that are of significance. You don't need to put the little teeny tiny details. You want to get an overall idea about the author from what they're presenting, and those are the general facts that you want to put. Okay? If you click on it on the bottom, right by Tristen, the little thing will come up. There you go. What was the question over here?
Do I need a copy for each Harlem Renaissance or each Harlem thing, like for each entire?
No, there's one section on that whole document for each author. Yeah.
Taylor, after
No, he was taking care of
No,
wire.
I'm sorry, I'm not,
Pretty much raised to wire.
I'm not going to
That's
lie.
what I was taking the hormone when he was adopted.
Okay, go.
Yep, and his grandmother, who was most likely his grandmother, died, and that's when he was adopted. Yep.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Is everybody good?
Be good students for your teachers, please.
Accomplishments, professional career. Cullen worked as an assistant editor, Opportunity Magazine, U.S. Column, Dark Power, his literary reputation, his poetry collections, The Ballad of the Brown Girl, and The Copper Sun. Hey.
So the fact that he had poetry collections and that he was an assistant editor for a magazine. Student summary.
Computer, obviously.
Let me answer that for everyone. Okay, Robbie has a question here on the student summary. It says, summarize in 2 to 3 sentences the plot, story, idea, or message of the highlighted literary text or literary selection. You will get that literary selection in your teaching. So once you're done with today's teaching, give me 2 or 3 sentences that kind of summarize what that's about, whatever literature you get in each day's teaching. Did that answer that, Robbie? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Everybody good?
So he's got, some of his poems are structured as sonnets. What is a sonnet? Yep.
You're the teacher.
So, well, and he can direct someone to Google it and then share that. That's a good idea.
I'm just joking.
Good idea. Is that what you're doing?
Read it out loud before the class. Please, Robbie.
I hate them.
You are on 2 different kinds of computers.
What kind of song do you want?
Do you have the definition of the general definition of a sonnet, Robbie?
I have
Okay, give us the Shakespearean sonnet, which most of you, I would assume, have had some experience with that.
it says the second major type of sonnet, the Shakespearean or English sonnet, follows a different set of rules.
Or maybe go sonnet structure. Look for that. Sonnet structure definition.
It's a 14-line poem written in iambic.
Iambic. Mm-hmm.
Pentameter,
Pentameter. Yep, that's the rhythm and the syllables.
which employ one of several rhyme schemes and adhere to a tightly structured thematic organization.
Okay, so it's 14 lines and it has like an A, B, A, or C, 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 D, that type of rhyme scheme. Very structured.
Thank you, Robin. Is everybody ready for the next slide, Clinton? Are you working?
He didn't download, I'm getting it for him. Move on.
Here's some of his poem. Yet do I marvel. I'm not gonna read it. And then we're gonna do some more stuff with the incident later, so we can.
Were you gonna have Yet Do I Marvel from the video that you picked?
Yeah. We discussed one of these poems here.
Oh, sorry. Start it over again. Sorry, I gotta put the volume up. Start it over again. Okay.
On March 30th, 1919, Countee Cullen would grow up to be one of the most inspirational poet/writer of the Harlem Renaissance. It's unclear where he was born and what he did most of his childhood, though people believe he was born in either Baltimore or Kentucky. Countee Cullen was abandoned by his mother when he was at a very young age, and at 9, a woman named Miss Porter took him in. They moved to Harlem, where he would then grow up. In 1918, Miss Porter died, and Countee was adopted by Reverend and Miss Frederick A. Cullen. Formerly known as Countee Porter, he changed his name to Countee Cullen when he was adopted. The Harlem Renaissance was a time that was greatly influenced by art. Countee was an editor, novelist, playwright, children's writer, educator, and a columnist, though he was most famous for his poetry. Countee addressed race issues in his art in ways that nobody had in the past. He taught people that not only white was beautiful, but black was too. Cullen was created the new Negro of the time. He died at age 42 on January 9, 1946, due to complications resulting in high blood pressure. Nowadays, people can still visit and admire his work at the New York Public Library, where most of his work can be found. Countee Cullen is one of the most influential people of his time. He is the reason many black people still have hope and courage to keep going.
The E3 in the middle.
Is there any questions over what we just showed you in the PowerPoint?
Yet do I marvel, by Countee Cullen. I doubt not God is good, well-meaning, kind. And did he stoop to quibble, could tell why the little buried mole continues blind, why flesh that mirrors him must someday die. Make plain the reason toward to Tantalus is baited by the fickle fruit. Declare if merely brute caprice dooms Sisyphus to struggle up a never-ending stair. Inscrutable his ways are, and immune to catechism by a mind too strewn with petty cares to slightly understand what awful brain compels his awful hand. Yet do I marvel at this curious thing, to make a poet black and bid him sing. My name is Todd Helms. I don't have anything else to hand out. I don't have any labels to give to anybody. You've got my name, so you know how to call me if you see me in the street, and that's about it. I am 19 years old. I don't do much of anything for a living, really. My parents still take care of me. I guess I'm a student. I spend most of my time reading, but my passion is writing. Sometimes I sit down in front of my writing pad and I don't feel like I'm qualified to write because I haven't read enough, so I'll put the pad down and read a book. But I love to write. I hope that one day I can be as eloquent as Countee Cullen. When I first read Yet Do I Marvel, I didn't know what it meant. I had to take the piece of paper home that it was written on and look up all of the allusions to ancient mythology and that kind of thing and figure out what it meant. So in the beginning it was just kind of me trying to figure out a poem. I wasn't really good at deciphering poetry. After I understood everything that was being said in the poem, it was almost epiphanous. I knew what Countee Cullen was talking about, how he felt so isolated. I've been called nigger, I've been called jungle bunny, I've been called coon. Before I even got into high school, I had heard all these names. So there was that. After I thought I explored the whole black thing all the way, I knew that I was isolated in other ways. I've always known. The fact that I'm gay doesn't help. When I was younger, someone told me I had a really high IQ, and that didn't help either. I always kind of felt like I was put aside. I don't know if it was so much that I was ostracized by anyone, but I think because of the knowledge of who I was, black, gay, whatever, I kind of poured myself out. Religion has an incredible significance in my life, mostly because of my family. I believed that God was on my side, that God was inside of me and totally accessible to me. I prayed every night. I prayed at every meal. I wept in church. And that was how I felt all throughout my childhood. God was personal to me. I felt a change in my relationship with God, probably, I'd say when I was going into the 8th grade. I had a lot of time to think about God and think about, was he really with me during those times when I was being teased and called names? And God didn't seem quite so personal anymore. There were discussions between me, my mother, and my grandmother about my religion, about my sexuality. They very firmly believed that being gay is an unhealthy thing and that I shouldn't be gay. I felt like Cullen had touched on all the things that I wanted to say, all the things that I was feeling and couldn't express as eloquently as he. I realized that he was saying everything that I wanted to say, that I wanted to say to my mother, that I wanted to say to the people in all of my classes in high school about how hard it was to be a certain way and not be able to talk with people about it. I doubt not God is good, well-meaning, kind. And did he stoop to quibble could tell why the little buried mole continues blind, why flesh that mirrors him must someday die. Make plain the reason tortured Tantalus is baited by the fickle fruit. Declare if merely brew caprice dooms Sisyphus to struggle of a never-ending stare. Inscrutable his ways are, and immune to catechism by a mind too strewn with petty cares to slightly understand what awful brain compels his awful hand. Yet do I marvel at this curious thing, to make a poet black and bid him sing.
Yet do I marvel. Okay.
Remember in Mrs. Jordan's class, weren't you in there? They had the thing from poetry.
Yeah, we had a snap.
Yeah, you
had a
had,
snap.
and you had the really,
They gave us a snap.
yeah, it was like Kobe.
No, I was jealous of you
That we have
guys.
webkins.
Did you guys always go outside?
I don't know. I stayed inside.
Can anybody tell me why we watched that video? Besides the fact that it had like his poem in it, beginning and the end.
To hear someone's interpretation of the poem.
Yes. And like when back at the beginning class when we did like how do poems affect you in the world and stuff, like that guy was obviously a pretty good example of how he was affected by a poem or poetry. Okay.
And I'm going to stop you here too. an ad here. What did you learn from his, I forget if it was Carly or who it was that said over here, to hear his interpretation of the poem, or the poet also? What did you learn from his interpretation about Countee Cullen and his poetry? That you could describe now some of Countee Cullen's poetry.
It's okay to be different.
Okay, that he had a message that it was okay to be different. Okay, so you learned more about his message. Good.
He wrote poetry that a lot of people could relate to, and so they could express themselves.
Okay. Did it have a lot of black sounding dialect in it? What? No. In fact, this gentleman described it as eloquent, which makes it sound what? If you were fancy, right? And think black in the early 1900s. Did African Americans have a reputation of being eloquent, fancy, educated?
No.
No, but here Countee Cullen did, and he rose up in front of people as an educated, eloquent, sensitive poet, intellect. Yeah. So that tells you more about his influence and the message that he wanted to portray, and that he did actually portray in the Harlem Renaissance.
Okay. That's huge. We're going to now read one of his poems, and we're going to rewrite it as a class.
Oh.
In our own words.
Like a piece of paper, you want us to rewrite it?
Yes.
Like your piece of paper?
Don't regret it.
No, you don't actually need it.
They just said rewrite it on paper. You guys gonna write it? I feel like we should do it as a class.
You could do it with marker, or you could actually go to my computer and you could write it down if you want to. You could type it out, or you could use marker.
Will that work though if we just write it up on the board?
For this purpose. Mm-hmm. Yep. You could pump it up a little bit. Do Control or Command plus sign, I think, and make it a little bit bigger. I think it's Command plus or Control plus.
Are we rewriting each line at a time?
There you go. Yeah, do it one more. And then move it down or up a little bit.
So like a narrator,
I don't know how I said that.
Okay, so now we're gonna rewrite this in our own words of what you think happened. It doesn't have to like rhyme or anything. We're just gonna kind of break it down and understand what he's saying.
Well, he was talking about his childhood.
Okay, so come up here and write that.
What? And
How about you guys?
I'm guessing that the person who pointed at him was not black. They were white.
Okay, so the speaker is black. Okay.
He's telling of his experience.
And how old is the speaker?
8.
Okay. And remember that the speaker of a poem is like the narrator of a story. So just because Countee Cullen was the author of this, or is the author of this poem, does not mean that he is the 8-year-old, the speaker.
No, I'm just spell.
It's hard to write on with the marker.
Do you have to like one out too? You're a teacher.
Well,
Like right straight.
I was doing really fast. I
It's
was
like
slow.
I can't.
No, it's like I think it's straight.
Yeah, and then I look at it and it's slightly out.
It's like
You can keep on going on.
Did you do those double letters?
yeah,
Oh, wish I could do it.
okay, yeah.
yeah, that takes a long time.
And they're straight too.
What else? Are you still focused on the first stanza?
Yeah, let's just focus on this.
And what do you know about Baltimore?
He was a great
Oh,
guy.
hairspray.
Was Hairspray set in Baltimore?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that.
Good
Okay.
morning, Baltimore.
Oh, that's right. And what do we know about Baltimore, though?
It's a black.
No.
Well, it's a
They
city.
didn't like the blacks in Hairspray.
Well, in Hairspray, and that was during the Civil Rights. And this was before that. It was early 1900s.
White chocolate.
I'm sore. Are you sore?
I was about to remember it.
Corey, what were you saying about the blacks and the whites?
Oh, like during this time frame, it was filled with a lot of whites in Baltimore and blacks weren't.
You can write that.
And Baltimore is a northern city. So when you think of early 1900s, north versus the south, what would the thought have been for an African American going up to the north to a city? What would a black person's expectation possibly be? That they would see racism or that they would not have racism?
That's not perfect.
I know.
What do you think? Would the black person be thinking, oh, I'm going up north, I bet I'm going to have a lot of people hate me because I'm black? Or would they be thinking, freedom, it's going to be wonderful up there, it's the north?
Especially as a little kid, when you don't even know what racism is yet, really. You can't comprehend that. What you're not expecting someone to act that way. Miss, you want to come write that? Yeah, come on. Let's go.
Get up,
Be a good engaged student.
Get your exercise.
Be good to your teachers,
It's not that
your
big.
student teachers.
You just have to write something. What is it?
Will someone come write that for Mitch, please?
What is it? I will. What is it?
Racism.
It's racism and how, as a child, you're not expecting that to show up
I
in your place.
was looking back in the
Justice is going down.
Is it really? No, it isn't.
Remix your H's like two
It's to be
parentheses
erased, but we have to write for a
with a
second.
dash.
Oh, you can keep going and then maybe erase for the, or put the third stanza on the left side, maybe.
Right under Baltimore.
You're like,
So what's the second stanza talking about?
Being bullied.
since he's black, he's discriminated. But he thought it was in good place, and he decided about going there until he realized it was, like, he might have known that the whites were kind of bullied. I can write that. Where at?
Just where we put it.
And think about it, he says, up in the first stanza, he says, heart filled, head filled with glee. So he was happy, and he saw somebody staring at him that was just the same age, and so he just naturally smiled. When you naturally smile at someone, what?
I'm gonna guess it has something to do with like taboo, which is
What poem? Are they both? Are they two different
Kind
poems?
of, you could.
Are they two different poems? What do you?
What?
I don't know. The two. Are they
Incident is the one that we just went through, and tableau
Just the incident where you do in tableau. And
is the one that you're doing now.
You didn't tell them to write on it?
Yep.
Tristan or Seth.
A group of model or motion
Oh.
figures representing a scene or story.
Well, the scene part, an impactful, powerful scene, kind of like a snapshot out of something.
From history.
Yep, something that has impact. So the taboo part that you can kind of think of is, ooh, you know, something that's taboo. Well, no. But if you want to think of taboo, things that are taboo are off limits. They have some sort of power to them. A tableau has power to it as well, but it's a scene.
I'll make a copy and
No way. Who is anonymous Nyan cat?
Oh, that's Kylie. Oh,
Or no, mine works now. Or Nyan cat.
Are they doing this individually?
yeah.
No.
Sure.
No. Oh, this one is good news. Where do we find that?
Kathy.
It's on. Yes, but I'll make a copy and then share it with one of the three.
Share it with who?
One of the three.
Harry Richter?
We make a copy?
Yes, you can go.
As soon as someone's done, let me know.
Share. What's a sable?
Sable is a beautiful, shiny black.
Sable pride of night.
Yeah, so think of the images, the colors that he uses, how he describes what's powerful about this, what scenes are evoked.
You know what? I don't know.
I think I clicked on the wrong thing.
Like all day, maybe. Oh.
Is that supposed to be like this? Who do we share it with?
One of the three.
We have to do each line.
Is it Harrison?
just
Is your
do each
email?
Stanza.
Stanza is fine.
Harrison, is your email at yahoo.com?
That's like my personal email.
Why is it on here?
I don't know.
You must have emailed him that before, because it comes up.
I've never emailed Harrison. I don't think I have. Harrison, do we email it?
What's a sable? Is that like
Sable is a beautiful black.
Beautiful.
Dark, dark,
Le
dark.
Sabre.
Matte black?
like a person?
Le
Color.
Sabre.
I'm so confused.
Color. He uses golden to describe splendor, splendid gold. No, I can't say it. Golden splendor
To describe
of
the day.
Everyone's gonna think wrong.
the golden splendor of the day, the sable pride of night. So it's talking about beauty of the day and beauty of the night. What does that represent? And that they're both together and they're both beautiful. Not one is better than the. He doesn't make night bad.
The lightning brilliant as a sword should blaze the path of thunder.
Think of how lightning and thunder go together. What comes first? What comes later? What does that do to people?
Like, blacks and whites should go together.
Or that they do, and one does something else to another. What does it make?
Oh, she will throw a hit. I'm running the one. Well, she forgot him last time. Or no, she didn't. I got one last. And then one last day with her. And she got this. She had tostada pizza and she like squeezed it.
She's so funny. One year they put gravy on the mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving. She was so bad. Just like my Thanksgiving.
So sable is black, pitch black, ebony, raven. So, but it's a beautiful, deep, 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 deep black.
You want this read on YouTube or just Harrison?
Just Harrison. Make sure that when you share it, you also just plain put it in your folder. Put them in your folders as well. We've got about 3 minutes. If you want to wrap up.
Yes.
What else do you have? Are you paying for it?
We'll just have them read, somebody read one.
You can. Mm-hmm.
She gets the benefit of her too. And then, does somebody want to read out loud what they wrote?
So like,
I'll write.
I will.
Okay.
I get it back up.
they pass it like
You see me glaring at you right now?
something wrong in what they're doing.
Why are you taking so much?
I don't know, because I didn't write it.
For the first stanza, I put a black and white boy are walking together as friends, not caring that the other is white or black. For the second stanza, I put people are talking about them walking together and are disturbed by it, thinking it is unbelievable that they would even be standing near each other. For the third one, I put the two boys don't care because they're friends. They continue to walk together even though people get on problems with it.
It's good. It's really good. Does somebody else want to do theirs, or Kate? Let's hear it.
Two friends, one black and white, are walking together.
Wow.
And then I feel like at the last part, I put like all day. And people are staring at them, judging them, and saying that they walk together, but they don't care about what people are saying. They feel like they compliment each other, like lightning. Together.
I like what you did with Thunder Lightning. It's like. Is there any questions on what we did today or anything like that?
Y'all are good teachers.